of myself, but somewhat related. In terms of when we plan for events, one of the things that well, there are really three things that we kind of keep in mind. One, what's appealing, and I made mention of a survey which we sent out electronically, which gauged how people are getting their information, the types of events, the price point, what they're willing to spend, and it really crossed different generations and different sectors in terms of what people do for a living and what interests them. The other thing that we looked at, are things that we consider really opportunity costs. So can you leverage deals or offers from your club's members? Can you partner with a Hoya-owned business? Are there notes from an event that took place last year, and can you capitalize on existing relationships that your club has with local businesses? I think the most important thing, to speak more directly to Sam's question, is really don't reinvent the wheel, especially if there's some groundwork that's already been laid in years past or in months past. As I said, I really think that one can build on each event and learn from it.
Great. Hey, before I ask, I have a variety of more questions to prod Gerard here, but does anybody have any questions for Gerard before we keep going here? Abby or John or Ping?
No, this is John. I do not. Thanks for asking.
No, all sounds good so far. Thanks.
Cool. So, sorry, I didn't hear from you, Ping. It sounds like no, but so what I'd like to hear is, we can delve more into community service later, but can you talk a little bit about applying for this award? You're very experienced, Gerard, as you can see in the background, at winning these awards. So can you talk a little bit about the application process for awards? Because I'm sure some people on the call, it's their first time around, and they might not be familiar with how to do this and how to go about it, that kind of thing.
Sure. I think first and foremost, if you have a solid board, make it a team effort. I think typically it may fall on one person, but it doesn't have to. The form that's used is typically a Google form that anyone can really access. So I think there's that. I definitely recommend, delegation or teamwork, or making it a collaborative effort. And really, especially if there's an event that there's someone who's organized it, he or she could probably speak to that event more than any other person, because he or she was probably the most invested in it. So I think that's one thing. The other thing that we do is we apply for all of the awards. Even if we think that we are not, that there was another event somewhere else that was great, we apply for all of them, and we try to be competitive in that way, because if you haven't applied, then you're not in the running. And I think that's pretty much, that's been our MO. And we can put out an event, and we really do. That's the other thing, is that I say this, and I'm in effect giving Nick a whole lot of work if you do listen to this advice. But really think about what is worthwhile. I think the other thing is, in terms of the nitty gritty for the application, use numbers and details. X amount of people attended. Incorporate reactions or commentary from attendees. Say something like, so-and-so had noted that this was the first event that she attended in 3 years. And so what does that mean? You can actually say, well, this highlighted our club's continued emphasis on engaging new members, people that have not attended before, and so therefore we were expanding our reach and our scope. I think you really need to think about how you market or how you really describe your event. And it could be small, even if it is small, even if it's 10 people or even less. Think about the impact and think about the point of the award. And I would also say, highlight how your event speaks to the overall mission of your club. If you need to look at the pillars of the Alumni Association to kind of give you some inspiration, that's something else I would do. Also, I would really underscore how unique your event is, because maybe you're in the Bay Area and so you can capitalize on the tech industry. Or how does the particular event that you're submitting for nomination, how does it fill an area of programming that has gone unnoticed or ignored? And that's one way to kind of, you know, say, hey, this is unique compared to any other nomination or any other club. This is something that's different. I think sometimes it's tough to talk about yourself or write about yourself. But I think, you know, sometimes it's just stepping back and saying, okay, we are doing something. What did we do? What did we accomplish? And again, using another set of eyes, other people to review. And these are really short blurbs too. They're not very long. So yeah, I mean, in general, those are the things that I would say.
Sure. So let me do a quick thing. I'm just going to show people who might not be aware what the actual application looks like. So let me just, I think if I do this, can you guys, Gerard and everybody, can you see the form on my screen here? I think so, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So for those of you
Yep.
who are virtually online, if you're not, John or Ping, like this will be on the webinar later, and I'm sure, you know, Ping, you're probably familiar. It's a pretty simple, or very direct at least. It asks for just the name and email and the name of a club or volunteer for nomination. A quick point I would say there is what Gerard was talking about, oh, it's hard to talk about yourself. Do you know what's really hard to talk about yourself? When you're nominating yourself for Volunteer of the Year. So let me take Gerard's point of it takes a village. You might find one of your co-club mates might nominate you or another board member, even though you might be reticent to nominate yourself. I would encourage you to do that. And also, I would echo Gerard's apply for everything. Maybe not everything if you didn't do everything, but as much as you do, as much as you feel you've done, and it's okay to do, absolutely do. Because we have a whole subcommittee led by Nick that I am happy to put all this work on, of going through all the nominations. And two, you never know what people will latch onto. I'm going to finish scrolling through this in 1 second, but I also wanted to go into what Gerard talked about is, like, yes, absolutely metrics, absolutely ROI, but also paint the picture. You really want people to feel like this was a unique opportunity that could only come about through Georgetown. Like this crazy intersection of alumni plus venue plus whatever else, it made this unique opportunity. So when you're doing it, yes, numbers, yes, the nitty gritty, which we'll talk about a little more here, but also just make people identify with what you did. So just to finish running through this, and then I'm going to ask Gerard a couple more and we can have some more questions. As you can see, you put in your name of your club and everything. You select which award you're applying for. Yes, you need to do each individual submission. And then just 250 words or less, please less, on why. You know, you can put metrics, and especially in this part here that says metrics, please add all that ROI stuff we talked about. But, you know, it's just a few quick questions saying, you know, what's happened in the award, what were the key numbers behind it, what's innovative or special, and what's Georgetown. And the very last thing, and I think Gerard touched a little, is we love pictures. We really do. Because a picture is worth 1,000 words that you can't type here because it has to be 250 or less. So please attach additional or send additional things to Nick because when we put these applications together, that is something all the people voting on it look at. They want to see what the visual was. And that'll actually help you plan your events too. Is in your everyday planning for events, think about what's marketable, what's communicatable to other people. So I've talked enough here. I'm just going to pull back from this form and put us back on and take a minute. And if we have any questions about the actual process for applying for awards here from anybody.
Typically, how many clubs apply for the different categories?
I'm going to delegate that to Nick. Nick, do you want to tell us how many applications?
So last year we had about 30 submissions across all of our categories. So some category there might only be 2 submissions, and others there might be 8. But overall we had 30 submissions last year.
Yeah,
and how many clubs did that represent?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I was just asking.
I'll do a quick count on that and get back to you because I have the website open.
But it wasn't, let me put it this way. There were no one-person races. It's not like, we don't want to set it up. We want there to be some conversation and around, you know, what's better, what's worse. And we always try and get the broadest field possible. So when Gerard's like, yeah, we applied for everything. We want everybody to apply for as much as they can because we want to have a good conversation about that.
One thing that I would also do, you know, because it is a form, especially, I think this really speaks to just continuity. This speaks to, you know, I always keep a record of all of the submissions from last year, the years before. If we need to go back to them, it's just generally helpful. You know, and it's a Saturday morning, and you're like, oh, I need to get this submission in, and you're at a loss for words, or you don't. I mean, just go back. I mean, if you have that paper trail, I think that that's also helpful. You know, so the Club of Philly, we're actually undergoing a transition in terms of, so my term ends the end of June, and so we just have a big Google Drive that just gets passed on, so people in the future can see, you know, what the submissions were like. So again, there isn't a complete reinvention of the wheel. Not to say that, you know, it's licensed to kind of make sure to have these submissions be disingenuous or just, you know, recycled, but just as in terms of inspiring what you're going to write. I found that helpful.
So I did a quick count here, and we had 15. So essentially 25% of our clubs nominate for awards.
Yeah, and there's also 15 different clubs, you know, nominating.
Yeah, 15 different clubs. Yeah.
Nick, just a logistical point that I'm sure you can comment on here. Can you let people know the timing for applications for this year, just so it's in the back of their mind?
We try to make this really easy for you guys and have it due at the same time frame as our annual reports are due. So as you're thinking about things you did this past year, you're also thinking about those great programs that you did. So for the month of June, our team has open both award nominations as well as annual report submissions, which are due. So June 1st, they'll go out and we send an email to all 400 plus volunteers. So it's not just sent to president. So every person on your board sees that coming through in theory. It'll also be in our, obviously, newsletter, and we'll send several reminders, and we will close nominations on the 30th of June.
So from June 1st to June 30th, you've got essentially 30 days to put together your application. So any other questions about the logistical process here? Before we ask Gerard some more fun questions, I would say, about planning these events. Okay, so let me prod Gerard a little here and say, you know, Gerard, for this particular event, what was your proudest moment about this? You put together this wonderful community service event. You know, you were proud to win the award, but looking back, what do you think the peak of this was, and does it inspire you to keep going? I guess, you know, how does it help you?
You know, I mean, I think first off, it is a sense of pride coming back to Philly and mentioning the award, putting it on social media. Usually at every event that we have, someone makes a public service announcement about upcoming events, but we have always highlighted whenever we won an award because it's really boosted morale and it's made our marketing more effective. So I think that when people come up to us and say, wow, you know, you guys are really doing something, this is different, You went from 4 events to 22 events each year. But I think the utilitarian aspect of it also is that people were more willing to pay their dues because they saw that that there was value added, that the, I don't know, $25 to $35 that the Club of Philly charges actually goes a long way, and that the Alumni Association is recognizing us, and it makes sure it gives our members the impression, and that, hey, the university's behind us, and they're aware of what we're doing. And because we had more dues, because there's just more support, it just really made our programming a whole lot easier because we knew that we had the resources, we knew that we had the financial resources, and that the interest, and that we were on people's radar. So I think, it doesn't end with just winning an award. I think it's using it to capitalize on keeping people engaged, and making mention of it. I mean, I think that, it's again, talking about yourself, but talking about yourself and the club to your club members. I think that has been probably the proudest part of that.
Yeah, I mean, let me hone in on one part of that Gerard talked about, which is people always ask, why belong to this club? What, what is the value proposition when I should pay dues or when I should go to an event? And I think winning awards is one of those things where you get to see that not only are you in the local community's eye, but you're in Georgetown's eye. And Philly is a good example of one of these clubs that in recent years, with winning all these awards, has really set a standard to be followed. And I think that's a great way to elevate your local club. If you're in India, DC, Research Triangle is, one, can you win an award? And it makes you, it drives people toward it there. But trying to win awards, the process of building an event that you think will be award winning, I think is its own reward. It'll help you think about how you structure your dues, how you engage people, and how you plan programming that will engage this kind of thing. So I just wanted to tack that on to Gerard's comments there. I feel we've talked a little bit about the awards process. We've given Gerard his due for winning a couple awards in the Philly Club. This is just a great chance, I think, for you guys to talk to each other about any other questions you might have about planning events or other club-related things. So I want to give the floor back to you guys and say, are there any questions you might have for each other, or do you want to talk to each other about anything while we're all here? It's okay if not. I do want to say, Gerard is one example of somebody who turned things around. So I think a lot of you might be in the case right now where you maybe haven't won so many awards and thinking, how can I do it? It seems like, the same people win these awards, or my club has never won an award. I would cite the Philly Club as I don't want this to be the watermark, Gerard, but before you got there, you weren't winning awards at this frequency, right? But in a very short time, you now win awards with alarming, I would say, frequency. So can you maybe talk a little about how you said the survey was one way you turn things around, but do you have any other advice for clubs, taking up something relatively unengaged and then turning it around?
I think a lot of it has to do with having a good board. I think that when I first got involved with the Philly Club, there might have been 5 or 6 people, and what we ended up doing was we doubled the size of our board to 12 people that really ranged they graduated from different schools. Also, we included people who are much younger than I am, even, and and I think what that did is that brought in a lot of energy. It brought in energy because these people are friends with other folks, other classmates that I would really have no chance of knowing otherwise through them. So when it came time to social media, when it came down to marketing, they tagged their friends. It just widened the reach. So I think that it's also holding everyone on the board accountable. One of the most uncomfortable moments, earlier in my term was having to talk to someone on the board and say, we do have a charter, we do have bylaws, and you can't just be involved in name so that it could be on your work website that you are this officer. And I think that's tough, especially because it is a volunteer opportunity, and so holding someone's feet to the fire isn't exactly one of the fun things. But what it did was it actually, everyone else, I'm not saying that it forced people, but it really made people conscious of what they were contributing, and also proud of what they were contributing, and taking ownership. So I really think that I'm going to leave it to my board. I'm going to leave it to them and their energy and all their contributions. And I think the other thing is following up. Sometimes that's really hard, especially when you have a meeting, you have some great ideas. Following up when it might be the unpopular thing to do, I think I've found to be very helpful, because it lets people know, hey, you said something, so are you going to do what you said you're going to do, type thing. So, I would really kind of, point to those things.
Thanks, Gerard. Yeah, I think it's funny because first of all, we all want this volunteer. You do it because it's fun and you want to be involved with Georgetown. But then it's kind of a job. It's kind of something you need to hold people accountable for. And yeah, it can be an uncomfortable conversation sometimes. I know Avi knows what I'm talking about because we recently had some of those conversations there. But it's necessary because you guys are the voice of Georgetown in the communities, and how we look on you is how people perceive you is how people perceive Georgetown. And so you putting your best foot forward is Georgetown putting its best foot forward. And that being, yes, we're here to have fun and do fun events that are engaging and intellectual and all these things, but we're also here to represent a certain standard at a certain point too. So thanks for sharing that, Gerard. Any other comments or questions here? I'm happy to wrap up this quick conversation here if we may, but I'm going to put in one more quick plug for June 1st to 30th is awards time. So please look at your emails during that time so we can help honor the work you're doing. But anything else from everybody here? I gave that about an 8 beat. I think that's good. Well, I want to thank you all. I especially want to thank Gerard for presenting about winning the award and all the applications he's going to submit this year that I'm looking forward to reading. I hope all of you submit as many applications as he does. And I want to thank you guys for all the work you do for Georgetown. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Gerard.
Thanks, everybody. All right, bye.